I also have a podcast. So if you want to be multitasking, you're in your kitchen, you're going for a walk, you can also listen to the podcast so that you can get the information while you do something else. There's a book I have that is on the Business Analyst Job Market Report. So this is a report on what employers are looking for and gives you all the things that would help you to get your next job as a business analyst. Also have a website, right? So the website has tons of good stuff. There's a template, there are courses, free courses, by the way, so you can just go and watch them. You don't have to sign up, you don't have to pay, it's just there for you. But there's one particular thing on the website I would like people who are interested in becoming business analysts to think about. It's this fit model that I've come up with. So the fit model explains the different things that you would need to have to be a good fit for the business analyst role, right? So there's a whole discussion on what business analysis is. I have several articles and videos on that. But if you're interested in becoming a business analyst, kind of what I do, there are some innate behaviors that you may have that lends itself to the role. So I have this fit model on the website, and there's a series of questions that you'll answer. You don't have to have training in business analysis. You don't need to take no course. It's just, what are you doing today that would help you to become a good fit? So you answer these questions, it's all free. And then we give you a result at the end right away. You don't have to wait for results or anything like that. The result comes and it tells you whether you're a low fit, a good fit, an excellent fit, or a perfect fit. Well, we hardly get people who are perfect fit, right? So it gives you a score between, I think it's like 1 and 360. And based on that, it tells you if you're a fit. And it also gives you some reasoning behind that. So if you're interested in the career, take advantage of these free tools that I have provided so that you can, one, know that you're going after the right career that fits your personality, and two, be able to get into this space that is growing. There's so many jobs, especially in Canada, for business analysts. And if you're trying to get into software, it's a very soft landing because you don't have to be a programmer to do this role. So just wanted to share those with you so you know that there are resources, there's help, there's assistance, there's support for those who want to get started in this very lucrative career. All right? So here are some real world projects that I've worked on that include user stories in Jira, right? So let's talk about them for a minute. So there were two projects that I worked on that I thought really was helpful to the user base. So one of them we call it the Action Plan Project, and the other one is called the Land and Expand Project. These were both projects that were geared at salespeople. So the Action Plan Project was a task management feature that we were building, and it had integrated features. So you could create tasks in this tool, and it would send it to Salesforce. Salesforce was the main CRM that we were integrated with, but we also integrated with others like Microsoft Dynamics, Sugar CRM, all kinds of CRM, but mainly our customers were using, for the most part, Salesforce. So we would create these tasks that was geared around sales activities, and then they could push it to Salesforce and have it all integrated and synced. It addressed the needs of account managers. So imagine you're going up for, you're working with a sales organization and you're trying to sell to billion-dollar companies, and you're trying to strategize around how to win this deal. So you have an account. An account is what you've already sold to. You have an opportunity, which means that these are qualified leads that could buy from you, right? So how do you confirm? How do you make sure you get that deal? It's very competitive, right? They have to have tasks. They have to do demos. They have to, send care packages. They do all kinds of stuff to try to get the deal. You guys have dealt with salespeople before. You know how aggressive they can be. And imagine at a scale of billions of dollars. So they're really aggressive going after these deals. And they need to be able to track all the activities that the sales teams are doing in order to get that opportunity converted to an actual account, right? So that was the Action Plan Project. The other project was Land and Expand. So once you have actually gotten them to sign and they are now a client, how do you keep getting money out of them? Because the purpose of you doing business is to make money, right? So what was happening was the salespeople would have all these ideas to grow the account, right? We're gonna try to upsell them this thing. They have this need over here. They have a project that's already, funded that we could sell our tool into, all that stuff. But they didn't want to put it into Salesforce or whatever their CRM was, because once they create that opportunity in Salesforce, and all of a sudden, all the managers are looking at it, and then there's some reporting, and now you got to be accountable. And if you didn't make the sale, then it's like you're not doing a good job. and it was just too much. So they would keep their ideas in Excel sheets. They would keep it in, their task management, Todoist or whatever, or even their Outlook. And when they had to do a report to their managers, they couldn't remember all the ideas that they had, and they couldn't pull it all together to give a good picture of what they're doing to grow revenue in that account. So that was their dilemma. So they needed a place where they could nurture their ideas without having all this oversight, and it becomes a part of a pipeline, and now they got to be accountable for it in this way too much pressure, when all it was just an idea. You had an idea to get $1 billion from this company. You put $1 billion in Salesforce, it becomes a part of a report. All of a sudden you didn't make $1 billion. Now it's like you didn't make the sale, and now you got to be accountable. So nobody wanted to do that, right? So those are the two projects. So imagine a sales team that has like 30 members, a huge sales team. How do you make sure that all the tasks that everybody has to do to be able to win the deal is being managed properly, and that they can brainstorm and work collaboratively in our tool, right? So that's what the tool did. And once you landed that account, how do you keep growing? How do you keep growing revenue? How do you help keep them giving you money year over year? Those are the two challenges that we're facing. So the action plan project, when we had our discussion, because again, remember, we talk about user stories. When we had our discussion, we understood a few problems from our client base. One was that the way our tool was, only one user could be in there at a time. So I'd be in there, let's say you're in a big room, a big conference room, you're all brainstorming ideas, it's very fluid, it's going fast. And I'm in there trying to capture these as tasks. Okay, create a demo, call the CEO, do all these things. But somebody else needs to add some other tasks. But they got to say, hey, Carolise, are you in the task? Okay, come out so I can go in. And they're like, oh, Peter, wait, I'm trying to finish up. Let me save here, and then you can go in. So the collaboration was disrupted. We couldn't do things fluidly because only one person could be in at a time. The people didn't like our tool for that purpose. It impeded the brainstorming process because it can't be fluid. You got to wait for somebody and disrupt the thought pattern that we were having. Not easy collaboration for sure. And sometimes if I didn't save, I'm trying to jump out, I didn't click the save button, now I lost all my changes. And ideas are some things that you can't get them again. Like the idea was just fresh and good, you can't even repeat it. So when you lose that momentum, it's hard to get it back. And if you didn't click save, you could lose all the work that you were just doing. That was a big pain. So the two solutions we came up with was allow multi-user capability. So all of us can be in there at the same time without losing our changes or overriding each other, and allow auto save. So I don't need to click on this big save button to save things. Nowadays, it's very common, like if you're using these collaborative tools, but in our tool, we didn't have the auto save, or we didn't have multi-user capability. So that was a solution that we came up with. So here are some questions that came out of the discussion with our development team when we talked about, we want to do auto save, we want to do multi-user. Some of the questions that the team came back with was how to let users know who's editing what. So yeah, all of us are in there, but how do I know that I'm editing and Osita is editing at the same time? How do I prevent him from overriding me? How to prevent deleting. So our tool was like a tree hierarchy. So here you have tasks, but those tasks boil up to an objective. That objective boil up to a goal. So the goal is to win the account, right? But you have these objectives that you have to meet. How do I know that if I delete this top level tier, it doesn't delete all of its children, right? So that you're not working in the child and then somebody deletes the parent and now everything is all messed up. How to handle connection loss. So I'll be in there working and my computer internet goes out and I think I'm still connected, I'm keep working. And then while I'm offline, somebody else changes something that I was working on. And now when I come back online, how do you make sure it doesn't get all janked up, right? So some of those challenges. How to handle integration. So while we are creating these tasks in our tool, it's automatically sending it to Salesforce to sync it to Salesforce. So how do you make sure that sync continues while multiple people are editing possibly the same task at the same time? So those are some of the questions that come out. And when you have discussions, these are the things that will come out that you wouldn't think about on your own. Like if I was sitting in my own little silo writing this user story, I wouldn't think about connection loss necessarily. That's just something that dev thinks about because they are so in the weeds with how the technology works. I wouldn't think about necessarily real-time integration. I'd say it needs to be integrated to Salesforce and I'm done. But I'm not thinking about how often the API is calling and polling and all this stuff. I wouldn't think about that stuff. This is the reason why you need to have discussions with your team to finalize the acceptance criteria, because they know things that you are not gonna know. So here's an example of the user story that was written around some of this. This is just one of the ones I pulled from the project at random. So this one handled prevent user from deleting action plan item if it is being edited by another user. So when you write user stories in Jira, you want the user story title to be very telling. It normally starts with a verb. You're doing some action, you're preventing something, you're allowing something, you're giving the ability to do something, so that as they look at the user stories in the backlog, they can pick out which ones is doing what without having to open them, right? So the title of the story has to say what the body of the user story is doing, so you can easily identify, the product owner can easily prioritize, and it's just a better way. It's a short, compact title that explains what's happening in the user story, and it starts normally with a verb. So here we have the format fleshed out inside the user story. Here's the user story part of it. Here's the acceptance criteria, and this one is in Jerkin format. So you see I've said, given that I am on the action plan, when I am editing the task, then another user cannot delete the parent that I am editing, blah, blah, blah. So it's a given action, given when then situation, right? So in this case, we wrote the user story, and you see we have this word verified here. So what we found that worked for us, and you can come up with your own, convention, is that once we have done with the story and the developer says it's QA ready, the QA person goes in and tests each individual line. And as they test each individual line, they put the word verified to say, okay, we tested, it works. We tested, it works. We tested, it works, right? And that is the reason why you have to make your acceptance criteria very detailed and individual so they can test it. So yeah, so this is what the user story looks like for this particular example. Let's keep going. So we talked about the convention that we were using at our company. It doesn't mean every company does this, but we found that it worked for us. Now, when they did a story or an acceptance criteria that did not match, like it failed, right? With what they tested didn't match what the user story said, then they would put failed. Now we had the convention of putting the date that it failed, and this is the bug they created for that, and then they put the link to the bug. Now, some people put this in the comments, some people just link the bug in the story, but we found that when we see that, okay, everything worked, but this one didn't work, it really calls attention to the developer to say, okay, this is the problem, as opposed to scrolling, looking in the comments, trying to figure out, okay, where exactly the problem is. It was very clear to them where the problem is. And if they want to see more about that problem, they simply click on the link, it takes them to the bug, and everything was very fluid that way. We found that process worked a lot for us. So that's how we were indicating when something failed in testing and when something was verified. Here's another example. This is an example of a spike story. So in this case, we wanted to do something that we didn't know how to do. We had no idea how to do this, but we know we needed to do it. So it says, research how to prevent action plan from displacing users while multiple users are editing. What would happen was multiple people are now able to go in. We've written that story, they developed that. But I could be at the bottom typing something, and then somebody deletes a row at the top, and all of a sudden my screen jumped. And I was here, and all of a sudden I'm placed here. It was very jarring, very disruptive. So we're like, okay, this is not a good user experience. But we didn't know exactly how to fix it, right? How to prevent that from happening. We know we got to fix it, but how? Nobody knows. So that's where you create a spike story. And a spike story doesn't have too much detail. It really just says, here's the problem, research how to solve this and present the findings to the team, right? And we gave them like a 2-day time box to do that. Some spike stories have acceptance criteria. In this case, we didn't have any because it's just how do you prevent it? That's the only thing. So sometimes you can put spike at the beginning so people can know when they're looking at it in the backlog that this is a spike story. But this is what I mean by spike. It means we don't know exactly what to do to solve this problem, but we have to go research, we have to go find out in order to come up with the best set of solutions, and then we can create a story that can be estimated when we do that, right?